Hey everyone, welcome to my October monthly plan with me video. This month was super fun because not only did I create a new character for this theme, but I also got to experiment with watercolors for the first time really. The theme for this month is foxes and coffee, which came from a few comments after my August plan with me video where I asked you all for suggestions about what I should draw in October. I absolutely adore this theme, and I'm so grateful for all of your suggestions that helped it all come together. For the quote page, I found this quote, "Coffee and friends make the perfect blend," and I thought it would be fitting for this theme. When I think of coffee, I often think of different blends or roasts. So I'm not sure if this was meant to be a play on words, but that's what it meant to me. So I've written the quote in a few different fonts, and I'm just adding an acorn, a few coffee beans, and a leaf for some small decoration around the words. I feel like this page is kind of the oddball page because I used marker to color in the objects, and for the rest of the pages I primarily used watercolor or a variation of watercolor, which I'll show you soon. I was a little nervous at first about mixing brown colored paints for the cover page, but as the pages go on, I started mixing more colors and painting more rather than using the markers. I also got carried away with the word blend, and playing on the word, I decided to blend some fall colors together with my Prismacolor pencils. The effect is really pretty, and it sounded like a good idea in my mind, but it really doesn't match with the rest of the color palette. Later on with the weekly pages, I do use some of these colors in markers for header boxes, so I guess it matches a little bit better there, but it doesn't really match the aesthetic of these first few pages that are mostly soft watercolors. The blending was super fun to do, however, so I'm not too upset about it. There was a lot of experimenting going on in these pages, so I just marked this up as one more learning experience. I'm using my Tombow Brush Pens to color in these items here. And if I had known then what I know now, I would have just painted them in because I really enjoy the colors and smooth appearance that the paints had on the following pages. And now I'm about to absolutely butcher the shading on this poor leaf, so let's just ignore that and move on. I'm adding a few light shadows under these objects and around the letters to lift them off the page a little bit. And using one of my new Ohuhu markers with the fine liner tip to write in the word October. And now I'm getting started fine lining this little fox enjoying a coffee with his little snail friend. I'm using a sepia fine liner for this outline because I thought it would complement the fall theme well. This color is very dark and looks black on camera, but I think it's a little bit softer than solid black. In the future, I'd like to get a collection of lighter brown fine liners for outdoorsy and cozy fall vibes, but for now I'm trying to use the colors I have because I've bought so many art products this year already. I've never had a fox character before, so this little guy was new to me and I love him so much already. I think foxes are such a cute character, especially for fall time scenes, but I think this little guy may have to become a more frequent visitor to my pages. When I was growing up, my parents rescued a greyhound from a racing track and her racing name was Tom Jack Champion, which I always thought was strange because she was a girl, but her name at our house was Foxy. So I was thinking about naming this character Foxy in honor of her. It kind of fits with my theme of naming characters after what animal they are, like I did with Gray Kitty, but there's actually a backstory behind this one. What do you guys think? I also wanted to use fine liners for this theme. Since I'm very unfamiliar with watercolors, I kind of wanted to have some solid lines to make sure all the colors stayed where I wanted them to be. So fair warning of what's to come, I am completely winging it with watercolors here. So true watercolor artists, please contain yourselves. Or don't. I'm sure I'll laugh at my attempts too a few years from now. But I think the pages turned out cute, and that's all that really matters to me. Techniques and skills will come later. So I'll be using two different types of watercolor techniques, both of which I will explain a little bit more about as we go along. The first technique I briefly mentioned in my last video, which is using Tombow markers as watercolors, and the other technique is using a split primary limited palette using only 6 paints to create all of my colors, which I am low-key becoming obsessed with. This green for the trees is an example of one of the colors I made with the split primary palette, which I really loved because as the paint dries, you can see variations between the green and blue that came about when mixing the colors. This very well could be user error, I wouldn't know, but I also found out that the blue I used in this mix is a granulating pigment, which I believe also causes this effect. Either way, I love this color, especially as I used a more saturated version of it later on. On this page though, I wanted to keep these trees in the background lighter looking so that they didn't detract from Foxy and his friend. This next technique involves using Tombow markers to create watercolors. I love this technique because I have so many dark but beautiful colors in my Tombow collection, but I often only use softer or lighter colors on my pages. Here we have a very bold, warm, red colored marker. As you can see, it is very pigmented, and when we add water to it, it becomes a much lighter color, which for me personally matches with my aesthetic a bit better. P.S. This is a terrible paper to be using for watercolor of any kind, but I'm just using it to test colors. Later on, I'll use another bullet journal I have to test colors, which matches the paper I'm using in my actual bullet journal a little bit better. I played around with this color, adding a bit of warm red watercolor paint to find a nice color for the hearts and Foxy's scarf. So you can mix your Tombow colors with watercolor paint as well if you're feeling adventurous. So I'm just dabbing the paint onto the page here and kind of piling it up a lot so the pigment is pooling in each area. This probably isn't the recommended way to paint, but I enjoyed the way it looked, and as long as I didn't stick my hand in it while it was drying like I did on some other pages, everything was all good. Now I'm working on an orangey yellow color for Foxy's fur. I used a warm yellow and a little bit of warm red. The warm yellow already leans a bit orange, so I really didn't have to add too much red to it to find the right color for him. After testing it in my productivity journal, because that's what I happen to have nearby, I was ready to use the color in my actual journal. I really love this limited color palette and how bright the colors appear on the pages. And there is a reason why these colors blend so well and also look so clean and bright on pages, which I'll talk about a little bit later in this video. This was a great starter color palette for me as a newbie because you really can't go wrong with how you mix the colors. They all complement one another and look gorgeous together. So I say a good starter kit, but I think these are the only 6 colors I'll be using for a very long time because they're so user-friendly and vibrant. So I mentioned earlier that I was a bit intimidated about mixing browns with my paints, so for the cover page I just used my Tombow markers to color in the wooden stump and table as well as the coffee and coffee beans on the table. On the following page, I got more creative and made watercolor mixes using brown Tombow Brush Pens. And now since filming, I actually know how to make beautiful brown colors with the limited color palette. It's amazing how fast our art skills can progress when we have the right teachers. I'm very blessed to have my mom as an incredible artist, although she doesn't like to call herself that, she absolutely is. And I've been watching her do art my entire life, and I've always been mesmerized by what she comes up with. She's taught me so many things about watercolor over the years, but I never had the courage to try it until recently. This video was originally gonna be just using the Tombow watercolor technique, but I found a bit of a learning curve there once I started trying to do it, so I went and grabbed this limited color palette that my parents had put together for me a year or two ago, because I thought I could maybe get the effect I wanted from the actual watercolors. So it was a complete happy accident that I fell into doing watercolors at all for this video. I kind of feel like it was God just nudging me and saying, it's your turn to learn watercolors now. Because as soon as I started playing with the watercolors, then suddenly blending and mixing the Tombows just clicked and made sense as well. It was like I was supposed to learn how to do watercolors, not just the Tombow technique. And I love feeling guided like that. So these pages really became mixed media quickly, because now I'm coming in with a darker green as well as a darker yellow-orange colored pencil to add some shadows to the plants and around Foxy. I kind of forgot to do this on the following pages, but it's a really cool technique that I would like to remember to use again in the future. I'm coming back to this watercolor paint again and using it to add some more shadows and shapes to the trees in the background. It was here that I began to notice the subtle separation between the blues and greens in this color, especially as it dried, and I absolutely love how it looks. I'm using my gel pen to add a few little shines onto different objects, and my white Posca paint pen to add some little white dots onto the leaves, because sometimes I like to vary highlights up with dots rather than lines. And here is an up-close look at the completed quote and cover pages. The next thing I'm working on is my calendar page. Here I've put together a cozy little cafe scene. I'm not sure if Foxy is the one with his back to us enjoying a coffee, or if he is the barista preparing a drink. What do you think he's up to? At the top, I've written October with the fine point side of a green Tombow marker, and I'm beginning to draw in a menu board here, which I'll leave blank for notes. I figure now may be a good time to talk about the split primary limited watercolor palette that I've been using before we start mixing the colors for this page. This color palette uses only 6 paints, a warm and cool version of each primary color. This is a cool container my dad made to clearly organize and label my paints. It's super nice to be able to see if a color is warm or cool at a glance. These paints are all single pigment paints, with the exception of the warm yellow color, which used to be a single pigment, but the formula was later updated to 2 pigments. But it still works really great with all of the other colors. With single pigment paints, the colors are pure and show up very clean and bright on paper. These colors also provide amazing color harmony because every color created has relationship with every other color in the palette. These 6 paints are also fairly transparent, which allows the white of the paper to easily be seen through them, also keeping the colors very bright and clean looking. Here's a picture of the 6 watercolor paints that I'm using. You'll see their pure colors across the top as well as along the left-hand column. And this is just a small chart of colors that can be created with them. And really, you can create just about any color you would ever want with these 6 colors, which is super cool. I'll link all of these paints below if you're interested in replicating this simple color palette. Daniel Smith does sell a kit with 5 out of 6 of these colors, but in my palette we've removed the Purell Scarlet color and replaced it with transparent Purell Orange. I'll make note of this in the description as well as a few other notes. Otherwise I have all 6 colors I'm using listed as individual tubes if that's easier. I learned all about these split primary paints from my mom and Kateri Ewing's course on Craftsy, which I can also link below. But if you don't have a Craftsy account, you can also find information on similar split primary palettes on YouTube. All I know is having this limited color palette has really removed a lot of the intimidation that I had around watercolors. I used the color chart that I showed earlier to get a general idea of what colors I'll need to mix to create whatever color I'm going for. And I know that pretty much however I mix these colors, they're gonna still complement one another in the final piece. I almost feel like I have an unfair advantage having learned this technique so early on in my watercolor practice. Because from what I've heard from others, it can be really easy to get muddy looking colors if you're just mixing from any old watercolor set. But since this is my first time doing watercolor and I was lucky enough to be told about this palette, I've never experienced that. So hopefully this will be of help to somebody out there. I'm a total newbie when it comes to watercolors, but I'm so in love with these colors that have come out of such a simple palette. I think I've gotten so used to alcohol markers and water-based markers where you end up buying hundreds of different colors that I didn't realize so many beautiful colors could come out of such a very small palette. Let me know in the comments what your experience has been like with watercolors and what kind of colors or brands you really enjoy using. I'm so new to the watercolor world, so I'm definitely interested to learn more. I'm just finishing up the fine lining here by adding some stools to the scene as well as a countertop so our foxes have a place to rest their coffees. I forgot to add some lines for the coffee in these cups, so I'm adding them in now so that I'm sure to paint within the lines when the time comes. Next, I'm just popping in the calendar lines here, which I drew using the fine-tipped side of the green Tombow marker I used for the word October. And then I used a brown Tombow marker for the very top of the calendars where the days of the week will go. I've also added the dates to the calendar in a gray Pentel brush sign pen. I figured this video is long enough, you probably don't want to watch me write in the 31 days of the month. The footage for creating these spreads was about 5.5 hours long, so I did my best to speed it up, but also not to cut out too much or rush through it too fast, because I try and hope that I'm creating a cozy and relaxing viewing experience for you. I'm mixing up a pretty green here now by using the cool yellow and warm blue from my palette. I know I keep saying it, but these colors are so gorgeous and really satisfying to mix together and see what colors come from different blends. I've added some water to this mix to lighten it up a little bit, and after testing it again in my other bullet journal, I've confirmed that this is the color I'm going for and I'm ready to paint some plants. And after they've had a little time to dry, I'm coming back with the green again and adding a little bit of shadow and dimension to one side of the leaves. I've woken up this orange paint again, as Kateri would say, and I'm painting in our two cafe fox friends. Once upon a very long time ago, I was actually a barista at my favorite coffee place ever, Caribou Coffee. I worked at the first floor Mall of America location during the holidays, which, let me tell you, was absolutely insane. I remember working Black Friday when the order screens went down at midnight, so like 40 orders just disappeared off the screens and we had no idea what drinks were being made. And trust me, you do not want to mess with people who are trying to go Black Friday shopping when they haven't had their coffee yet. Despite how ridiculously busy holiday season was at this location, it still was one of my favorite jobs ever. I absolutely loved crafting coffee for people and using high quality ingredients that most shops don't bother to use. So it really is an art and something I took pride in while crafting each drink. One day I would love to get a huge commercial espresso machine because they're so fun. The best part for me was steaming and frothing milk for cappuccinos and lattes. It's just super satisfying. So aside from the fact that I really loved the foxes for this theme, it also has a special place in my heart because I just love coffee and all the different mochas and drinks you can craft even from home, which is mostly what I do nowadays. I'm making another red paint mix here using the Tombow markers and then using the watercolor paints. First I added the warm red marker down and then added warm red watercolor paint to it, but then I remembered that I actually wanted the cooler pink tones that come from the cool red, so I added that in after. Just goes to show how you really can't mess up with this color palette. Though I imagine you need to be a bit careful when adding the Tombow colors in because those could muddy up the colors if you're not careful. But the red Tombow marker I chose is actually called Warm Red, so I feel like it matched with the warm red watercolor paint just fine. I also mixed up the browns on this page very easily, as you saw before, with the brown Tombow marker and a little bit of water to lighten it up a bit. I had mentioned before that I slowly progressed to using the brown Tombow markers as watercolors rather than drawing onto the pages directly with them, but then I got to rambling and didn't mention just how easy that color was to make when I used it for the coffee beans and coffee on this page. I just scribbled the Tombow brown color onto my ceramic dish, which is super fun to do, and then I added a little bit of water and we were good to go. Also, if you were wondering, I'm just painting in part of the apron on this little fox that is looking towards us. I didn't really know how to make it obvious that he is the barista in the scene, so I was hoping that it would be more clear with the top of his apron showing. And no, he does not work for the company that wears green aprons. We don't talk about her in this house. I wanted to make a blue-gray color for the menu boards, so that's what I'm doing now with this gorgeous blue Tombow color. I used some gray from another Tombow marker as well to desaturate this blue a little bit. But since learning a bit more about my limited color palette, I think I could also achieve this color or something similar with the watercolors. But it is super cool to have the option of using one of my many Tombow markers to make a quick color with. I had done my cover page with the two little ceramic dishes that my mom had given me, and I didn't want to wash the colors off them because I knew I would use them again. So I ordered this 9-well ceramic paint palette from Amazon, and it arrived just in time for me to do the rest of the pages and have plenty of space to mix up colors for everything else I needed. I decided to use this blue color on a few of the jars and cups to tie different elements of this page together. Then apparently I got overly confident with my watercolor techniques and decided that there was too much white on this page and that I should try to put a light blue background on this menu board, knowing full well that the words written on it were written with water-based markers and would not hold up well. But I still did it anyway. Next, I'm creating the gray color that will be used on my espresso machine. Again, this was super easy to create by just adding some water to this dark gray Tombow color. And then I decided to add a little bit of blue color to the mix as well. While that dries, I'm adding in a few light blue lines to the menu/notes board. And then I added a little bit more water to the dark brown color to lighten it up a little bit and used it to paint the stools at the cafe. Again, I'm just winging it when it comes to adding the shadows. I should probably allow for the paint to dry and then come back and add them, but I'm just too impatient, let's be real. I really love being able to use these beautiful Tombow colors and eliminate the streaks that are usually seen when using water-based markers like these. I think Tombow's color selection is absolutely gorgeous, so I'm so happy to have new ways of using the colors, to mix them or make them lighter to match my aesthetic better. I lightened up this brown once more before painting in the countertops, and used the color to paint the shelves on the walls as well. Now that the espresso machine has had some time to dry, I am lightening up the gray color with some more water and continuing on painting the rest of the machine. I am particularly happy with how I was able to shade and show the contours of this machine. For some reason, it worked out very well, I think. I grabbed some of the remaining orange color and watered it down a whole ton to create a light cream or beige color, just to fill in some of the white spaces on these jars. Then I also used it to color in the ears, face, and tail on the foxes. I decided to go back to the menu board and try to crisp up the letters by writing over them once more with the water-based pens that I never should have crossed in the first place. The background still looked a bit too plain for me, so I decided to draw in a few sparkles and add some yellow color to them. Something was still missing though, so I used a light brown color to create a floor for the cafe, and then I also used a light blue between the counter and the floor to add another little pop of color. I had been recording for about an hour and a half at this point, so my phone decided to run out of space and stop recording during that part. And here is an up-close look at the final Fox Cafe scene and calendar page. The next pages I'm working on are my trackers and memory pages. This tracker page layout is similar to the one I did for my August mulling theme. I like how it provides a nice large space for drawings. Here I've used these pretty Ohuhu Brush Pens to create the header area for each tracker, and then the fine tip side to write in the days of the week, Sunday through Saturday. And now I'm beginning to fine line this little fox enjoying a coffee on a toadstool mushroom. The inspiration for this drawing came from my mom. She's been loving foxes and drawing a bunch of them recently, and she sent me this super cute woodland friends picture she created, and when I saw her fox sitting on a mushroom, I just knew I had to draw my own version of him for this theme. I wouldn't have thought of this on my own or thought to make the mushroom into a little home, so I love that we share our art with one another and bounce ideas off each other, and she helps me come up with so many fun ideas that I would never have thought of on my own. So she's got me hooked on foxes as well now, and I'm not upset about it at all. I've really grown to enjoy having a tracker page like this. At first I didn't really use my trackers after creating them, but now I make sure to check in every night and track my goals to see what I accomplished during the day. So the colored lines are where I write down which habit I'll be tracking. Right now it's my art practice, reading the Bible, working on my YouTube, and creating new things for my shop. And then underneath I have numbered all of the days of the month so I can just check them off each day I complete one of my goals. This has helped me to stay accountable to my goals because I can always tell where I've been slacking or where I'm falling behind. For example, I've been spending so much time editing this video and trying to get caught up on my YouTube videos recently that I've noticed that I haven't been finding time to practice art each day, which is really important to me. So every day that I notice I'm not marking off the art practice tracker, I feel kind of bad because I know it's important to me, and then I make a point to find more time for it the next day, or I'll try to sneak in a quick drawing before the night is over so that I can actually mark it off as done for the day. With so much going on every day, it's easier to let things that are important to me slip, and this makes it more noticeable right away, rather than letting missed days turn into weeks and weeks of not practicing art, or whatever habit I'm tracking. It's actually really crazy how long these videos take, from coming up with an idea and sketching it out, to recording and editing, the voiceover, and all of the other things that need to happen before publishing. Even though I'm putting in 10 to 14 hour days working on this day after day, I still feel super behind. It's my fault because I'm trying to get caught up on videos so that I can stay caught up, so I created this ridiculous schedule for myself, but I definitely have been noticing that I have no time for anything else right now. Like, I really need to cook dinner soon, and I've been working on this for the last 7 hours or so, but I feel guilty to step away because I know I probably have another 8 hours or so that I need to put in tonight in order to get this video published on Sunday morning. Because I actually wanted it out on Wednesday, but it's been taking so long that I'm quite a few days behind now. But I just keep reminding myself that it's only for a month, and after I get caught up, I'll have about 2 weeks to work on each video, rather than just 1 week like I do right now, which is almost impossible for me. Yesterday, my friend reminded me that God wouldn't give me anything that I wasn't prepared for and capable to do, and honestly, that was exactly the encouragement I needed to keep going. So I keep that in mind, and it definitely helps. I'm making a new blue color for Foxy's cup because I'm pretty sure I muddied up the previous blue, or maybe I just ran out, I can't remember. And then I'm making a new batch of brown paint, which I will use for his coffee and door on the mushroom. I'm also making another reddish pink color that I wanted to be a little bit different from the red of the toadstool mushroom to use for Foxy's scarf. I'm coming back to the dark brown color again and making it lighter with some water for the base of the mushroom. And then I'm adding a ton of water to that light brown color to make the light beige that I can use on the mushroom dots. The color was still a bit too dark after I laid it down, so I used a bit of paper towel to quickly soak up the color, essentially giving the paper just a light stain of color. Then I used this technique again, making a light cream color for Foxy's fur and removing some of the extra pigment with the paper towel. Next, I'm using the darker brown paint to color in Foxy's toe beans on his feet. One of the beans was still wet and wouldn't take any more color, so I had to wait and come back to fill it in. Watercolor may at some point teach me patience. However, that is yet to be seen. For my memory pages, I wanted to make some cute coffee cups and jars where I could write random notes, memories, or odds and ends on the outsides of them. At first, I didn't know if I should just outline them with color and leave part of the cups white to be written on, but in the end you'll see that I fully painted everything. This will probably result in me not writing on them at all because I was super pleased with how the colors turned out, but only time will tell. Let me know what you guys think of these longer plan with me videos. It wasn't my intention to make such a long video, but there was just so much footage and I really wanted to talk about these new watercolor paints that I'm so excited about. I know some of you have mentioned that you really enjoy longer plan with me videos, but this one is almost 2 times longer than the longest video I currently have on my channel, so I'm definitely curious to hear what you think. I really want to try to record and publish a video for the September weekly spreads, but with how long this one is taking and the fact that I am on somewhat of a deadline to have the November video published at the same time as another artist I'm collaborating with, I just don't know if I'm gonna have time for it. I love this theme so much though, and I plan on creating the pages anyway, so I really want to share a video of the process with you guys. But I may have to compromise somewhere along the way, most likely with the quality of my video editing. So I'll figure that out day by day, but sometimes I just create these ridiculous goals for myself, and then when I accomplish them, I'm just made that much more aware of what I'm actually capable of. And that sort of encourages me to follow through. I'm using the Tombow brown color to paint the coffee in these mugs now. The colors settled and dried so smoothly, which was super fun and satisfying to see. I'm adding some gray for a shadow and some contour around the lid of this disposable coffee cup. And then I'm grabbing the green color we've been using for all of the plants and using it on the sleeve of this cup. Again, I really loved seeing how this color settled and dried because that granulating blue pigment is part of the mix and does some really interesting looking things. I was able to find an area on the palette where the green color was a bit deeper, and I was able to make this bottom cup a darker shade of green. And I'm just coming in and adding a bit more shadow to these cups. I'm adding more of the blue Tombow marker to the palette here so that I can make enough color to paint the lid and label of this coffee bean jar. Now I'm creating a pretty pink color for this middle cup using the Tombow red marker and a bit of the cool red watercolor paint. I think I also added a little bit of blue to the mix, which deepened the color and resulted in a really pretty pink. I liked these colors when they went down on the paper, but after they dried, somehow they were really taken to the next level, and I'm really happy with the final color palette on this page. For this final cup, I really had no idea what color I wanted to use because I had already used a majority of my color palette and I didn't want to use the orange of Foxy for this cup, so I just started mixing together a random pink color and it ended up working out really well, surprisingly. It dried into almost a peachy color, which I thought complemented the others really nicely. I'm adding some shadows under the cups, and then I'll be adding a few highlights to all of these objects. I probably should have just stuck with using the white Posca paint marker for the highlights, but I decided to give my gel pen a try and it decided to fight me as it usually does, but in the end I managed to get my highlights. And here is a closer look at the final memory and tracker pages. Because I'll be creating 5 weekly spreads for the month of October, I decided to include the first weekly spread in this video. I am starting off with some faux calligraphy, and then getting started fine lining some coffee beans. I'm super happy that I was able to complete this weekly spread on time so that I'm actually able to use it. If you were with me for my last video, you know that I did not complete my weeklies for the month of September until the second half of the month, and I was unable to use all of the cute spreads I had worked so hard on. This is one of many reasons why I'm so eager to get caught up and get on a better schedule for creating and releasing these videos. I also want to make sure they're available in case any of you feel inspired to recreate them, then you have time to actually do it. If you ever decide to do this, please tag me on Instagram at koanna_art because I would be so excited to see what your recreated journal pages look like. I am also super excited to get working on the Coffee and Foxes sticker sheet that I want to make around this theme. That probably won't happen until November since October is going to be super busy for me, but I'll definitely keep y'all posted when the stickers are available. I'm adding in a cute little mini calendar here and coloring in the letters for October with this pretty burgundy color. I'm waking up the dark pink color that we created on the previous page for the heart on this cup. I'm using the warmer reddish pink color now to color in Foxy's scarf. It probably doesn't look too different from the red on the heart, but I like to try to vary things up a bit, and I already had the color. I'm using the gray again to add some shadow to this disposable cup that Foxy is holding, and then I'll be painting the cup a light blue. You're probably getting pretty familiar with these colors now, as I'm bringing back the orange that we've been using on all of the previous pages to color in Foxy. It's nice that once these colors are mixed, they can dry on the ceramics and be woken up with water and used over and over again. There's no need to start over with making each color, as long as I've made enough in the first place. I've scattered some coffee beans all around the pages here, so I'm just going to outline all of them with the fine liner and then add some brown Tombow watercolor to them. Once these are dry, I am able to add a light gray drop shadow behind them. And now we can get started creating the day boxes for this weekly spread. I've created 6 boxes this week where the weekend will share a box. And I'm using the 3 marker colors that I used for the trackers on the previous page for the colors of these boxes. I'm drawing some stitching around the inside of the box to give it a cozy feeling. And I will do this for the other 5 boxes as well. Next, I'm just coming back with each box's matching color and filling in the header at the top of each box. I also like adding a little drop shadow around these day boxes to help them pop off the page a little bit. So I'm doing that with this light gray brush pen now. After that, we just need to write in the days of the week on these headers, and this weekly spread page will be ready to be used. And here's the up-close look at the first weekly spread for October. Now it's time for a flip through of all of the spreads we've worked on today. I hope you enjoyed this theme and watching me experiment with learning new ways of painting. Thank you so much for joining me today, and if you made it this far, please hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. It really helps out my channel so much. I hope you have a beautiful day, and I will see you in the next video.